Well, we're grateful. It's time to focus in on a little bit of your business's story, and importantly in this context of a day that's focused around the role of collaboration and how we accelerate decarbonisation. You lead a business, Bill, that has a long and a storied history. So just to ground us and get us started today, how do you describe the Alcoa of right now?
Good. So for those of you who don't know Alcoa, we're a 130-year-old company that started in Pittsburgh. We founded the aluminum process. Our founder did 130 years ago. We're a global company. We've got 27 sites in 9 countries around the world. We're a vertically integrated aluminum company. We mine bauxite, refine it, smelt it, and cast it. Sell it on to customers that then do things with that metal. We have a large presence here in Australia. Mm-hmm. So we've got 3 refineries in Western Australia, one of which is currently curtailed, 2 mine sites, and then down in Victoria we have a smelter. That's a joint venture partnership with a couple of partners. So we're very focused on aluminum and all aspects of the primary aluminum business.
And so when you think about aluminum, the role that you see it playing in the energy transition, can you just take us to both the opportunity and the challenge that sits ahead of you as a business?
So when you consider aluminum, it's in just about every part of your life. Mm-hmm. When you look around this room, you can see aluminum. When you travel around the world, whether it's aerospace, rail, automotive, aluminum's intensive on all those applications. Packaging is a big application for us. So aluminum is one of the big solutions that is available for the energy transition. Mm. The reason why that is because of the lightweight story, but also the infinite recyclability. Mm. An amazing fact is that something like 75% of all the aluminum made in history is still in use today.
Wow.
Because of the ability to recycle it.
That's extraordinary.
And so as we look at the energy transition, aluminum itself has a massive future as part of that energy transition. Alcoa is a big player in that. So Alcoa's position in the energy transition is we're developing a couple of new technologies that allow for a completely decarbonized aluminum smelting process, and then the recapture of lower grade scraps to create higher grade aluminum that we're working on currently. So not only is the metal itself a big part of the energy transition, but we're a leader in the technology there.
And really that gets to the heart of the follow-up question I want to ask you, but I'll give you the opportunity to expand on it. That piece around the alignment of the business's growth, really the title of this session, and the energy transition. I mean, for you, in your role as leader, but equally when I think about that 130-year history you've laid out, what have been the challenging strategic conversations you've needed to lean into as a business as you've navigated that alignment and thinking about how do we reset and focus on a new opportunity here?
Really twofold. The first is around customers. Mm-hmm. and what customers desire in the energy transition. So we have customers specifically in places like Europe who are demanding low carbon products. Yep. So we've developed the widest, the broadest set of low carbon products, and it's inclusive of a low carbon alumina, which is the intermediate product between bauxite and aluminum, 2 low carbon aluminum products that allow our customers to try to meet their decarbonization targets also. So that's on the customer side, but just as importantly is on our process side. I mentioned the fact that we, along with a joint venture partner, Rio Tinto, are working on a completely decarbonized aluminum smelting process. It's something we've been working on for close to 50 years now. We will have the first commercial size cells installed in Quebec by the end of this year. Wow. So we've made a massive breakthrough in that process, and it'll establish us with Rio Tinto as the world's leaders on low carbon solutions.
It's really exciting. I want to put to you a premise that, because when I hear that, Richard's presentation a moment ago from McKinsey was that we don't have an innovation challenge, we have a scaling challenge. When I hear the complexity of the problem you've been solving for 50 years there, I think it's a little bit of both still, isn't it?
In that particular instance, it is a massive scaling issue.
Yep.
I like to think about some of the scaling speed that you see in Silicon Valley around software. How easy is it to scale software quickly? Hardware is a really hard, complex problem. And when it comes to a smelting technology, you have everything to worry about, from electromechanical scaling, the heat in the pot, and going from a small scale bench project to a commercial cell has been a completely non-trivial problem, and it has taken us a long time. We actually will have a commercial size cell operating at the end of the year. We have been able to make metal purity, and so we've got product that we're selling to high-end customers today with some of the smaller cells.
So thinking about that example there of your joint venture in that regard, maybe is something you could talk us through a little bit in this regard. What we've heard a lot on our stage so far is mining's only getting more complex, the resources is only getting more complex, the problems are only more difficult. What have you as a business learnt on the journey over the last 50 years? What have you had to structure differently? How have you needed to allow the flow of capital, innovation to work differently in your organisation to get this breakthrough? And are there lessons that you're carrying forward from that?
Yes, so I would agree with your other participants that mining is getting much more complex. And you know, we have done a lot of work, especially in Western Australia, around understanding what stakeholder expectations are and trying to run the company in a way that meets those increasing stakeholder expectations. Other than that, as we look at the innovation side of the business, we have structured this joint venture between us and Rio because it takes the best of both organizations and puts them focused on coming through with this breakthrough technology. We had the technology, we had the intellectual property. Rio has the ability to commercialize technologies. They've shown that in the past, and we believe putting those two together has allowed us to speed up, accelerate that process.
When you think about, you know, the next couple of years of your strategic horizon, what are the trends that get you excited from an innovation standpoint that you think could be levers of the next phase of growth for your organisation?
So we're obviously very bullish aluminum. We're an aluminum company.
Of course.
As we look forward, the demand growth will be driven by this energy transition. I didn't mention the fact that we are a ready substitute in certain applications for copper. And as you see the demand outstrip supply of copper, on the margin in certain applications, aluminum is a very good change out versus copper. So as we look forward, the mega trends are driving aluminum demand on a year-over-year basis, demand growth, whether it's 3, 4, 5% every year. And couple that with some supply changes in the industry, for instance, the Chinese sticking to a mandatory cap that they've put in place, that shapes up for a much stronger aluminum industry for globally.
Something we probably haven't talked as much about on this stage when it comes to innovation so far in our conversation today is about the circular economy side of things and thinking through things like waste, water, topics that I know are very near and dear to really some incredible case studies and global leading innovations and progress that Alcoa has run. Can you speak about the work that you've done and just how you think about this as part of your innovation agenda at Alcoa?
So it's always important to keep in mind that one of the drivers around aluminum demand is the infinite recyclability, right? So you've got that circular economy almost built into the economics of the industry. Now, for us, that's an opportunity and maybe a potential threat also. The reason why I say that is because when we look at the future demand growth of aluminum, primary aluminum is growing at one level, recycled aluminum is growing at a much different level. So the recyclability of aluminum is driving solutions towards the purchase of scrap and the need to recycle scrap. So as we look at the industry, that's the part of the recyclability story. However, on the process side, as an energy-intensive industry, we're constantly looking at opportunities to decarbonize, but also reuse certain key inputs. We're a heavy water user in certain parts of the world. We're looking at opportunities to recapture the water molecule. Part of our process around recycling is how do we recapture some of the water molecule through electric calcination. Just recently, on a much smaller scale, we announced the recycling of tires in our mining business. And so we're working with a company to recycle those tires in the mining business. Even more important to that, then as the process of refining bauxite into alumina, we generate what's called residue mud or residue. We're the first to implement in Australia the recapture of some of that liquid coming out of the residue in order to put it back into the process through residue filtration. And it was first of its kind in Australia, so we're really proud of some of the innovations that we've done on the reuse side.
And the water molecule piece may be your answer here, but what's the next challenge that you're leaning into solving as an organisation? What's the next wicked problem in that regard?
It all depends on what part of the process. So on the mining side, we probably will be a follower of the technology. We're not large enough to be an innovator on, for instance, change out of the machines. So we'll take the best in breed on mining. In refining, it's really two areas. One is recapturing the water molecule, and the second is eliminating that residue waste, right? Finding reuse cases for that residue waste. When I fast forward to 50 years from now, we're going to look back and say we really needed to do that as quickly as we possibly could. And then in the smelting part of the business, it's around energy reduction, going to a greener sources of energy globally. We're today at 87% of our energy is sustainable, is low carbon sustainable energy. It's really focused there on the smelting side.
Just thinking about your journey to get to Sydney, you've been across maybe 3 countries and 2 or 3 continents on your way here.
I think it's 3 continents and probably half a dozen countries.
Half a dozen countries.
On my way here.
You are perfectly placed, and let alone with the presence of your business and the work that you do, to talk about that purview or that vantage point that you have on government and government's role in this decarbonisation piece. I'd love your thoughts more broadly. We had a lot of conversation yesterday, but I guess specifically to focus the question, what change could government make here in Australia to meaningfully accelerate decarbonisation?
I wish there was a single answer I could give you for that. But it's a very simple question with a really complex answer. As I look at places to invest around the world, Australia is still a tier 1 place to invest. Why do I say that? Great labor, right? So we've got some of the best educated labor force in the world here. Rule of law, I don't take that for granted around the world, but we have rule of law. So with that, and I could list off all the important things, the Australia is still a good business environment to work in. However, when I look at what are the things that governments, not necessarily just the Australian government, but governments can do to ensure that the aluminum business stays in their country. Number 1 is affordability of clean energy. We are very focused on using clean energy in our operations. So we need affordable energy. When we look at, for instance, Western Australia, a very clear and concise domestic gas policy that ensures that gas comes onshore and is affordable. That's number 1. Number 2 is around carbon, all right, and essentially having a predictable carbon program, right, that results in predictable carbon pricing, but also in addition to that, as we look at some of these major investments that will have to be made for decarbonization, we will need support for those investments. And so we'll be looking around the world for that support. And then I guess thirdly is what I would say is certainty of energy transmission in a country. So as we look at where, we run 24/7 operations that are critical, that they need to continue to have energy. It's that reliability of the grid that's critically important for us in places like Portland. As Portland starts to develop, and I should say Victoria, our plant's in Portland, but as Victoria develops a lot of the sustainable energy, that brings with it some uncertainty around the grid. And it's important that we have the certainty of those operations. So affordability, really the reliability and carbon are the three things that governments can be looking at to ensure a strong aluminum industry.
Great. Bill, before I let you go, I'd love to ask you to turn your mind forward to something I'm sure you think about a lot, which is sort of the evolution of Alcoa over, I don't know if I can be, let's do 10 years, even though I think the unpredictability of innovative disruptions makes it very hard to sketch out that long sometimes. But I guess I'd like to ask you two ways. What's a risk or a challenge that keeps you up at night that you're thinking about how to solve for in your business, and what's something that gets you out of bed every morning excited about the opportunity ahead as you think about the evolution of Alcoa?
I will briefly address the risk because the getting out of bed in the morning is pretty easy.
I get that sense.
Really the risk that there's specific micro risks around the world that I worry about. But the broader risk that I consider with our employees is, can we move fast enough? The world is really moving quickly. We're a 130-year-old company. That's great. We have great history. We've got great processes. Can we move quickly enough to take advantage of some of the things that are changing? What gets me out of bed in the morning is I love making aluminum. And you may laugh at that, but we make a product that makes the world significantly better. And we do it in different parts of the world. We're truly a global operation. And we've made a tremendous amount of progress in simplifying and growing the company over the last year. And I look forward, the mega trends will drive demand for aluminum. In the near term, pricing is strong. It will allow us to reinvest in the company. And I see a very bright future for Alcoa.
Your passion for what you do is genuinely infectious. Bill, it's been a delight to have you here. Thank you so much for the insights and the candor with which you've spoken about not only the Alcoa journey, but also your macro observations. Can you join me, everyone, in thanking Bill Oplinger, CEO and President from Alcoa?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.